The rhythmic razor-sharp clack of $1,200 Christian Louboutin heels striking polished concrete wasn't just a step. It was an arrogant declaration of structural war echoing through the vast glass atrium of systems. I stood near the back, holding a lukewarm cup of bitter breakroom roast that tasted like battery acid and corporate despair, watching the incoming storm sweep past the oblivious crowd. Having served as the director of corporate real estate for 19 years, I knew that polished floor cost precisely $18.50 per square foot installed, along with the massive HVAC load required to keep the building from turning into a greenhouse. My long tenure was apparently deemed obsolete today as Lila West, the founder's spoiled 32-year-old daughter, swept into the room radiating a manic bought-and-paid-for MBA glow. Lila projected her voice with a jagged, hyper-positive corporate enthusiasm that made seasoned HR managers break out in hives, loudly announcing the arrival of a disruptive new era called Westville 2.0. I took a slow sip of my terrible coffee, knowing that trimming the corporate fat was merely a buzzword for firing the veteran infrastructure crew who actually understood how the servers ran. Her predatory eyes scanned the silent room, looking for easy targets, eventually locking onto me with a sharp, toothy grin that signaled an immediate execution of my long-term career. When she called my name aloud, I calmly adjusted my glasses and smoothed down my sensible sale rack Macy's blazer before stepping forward without making a single sound in my flats. Lila gestured toward me like an exhibit of an extinct species, publicly labeling me as the stagnant old guard of a bureaucracy that a fast-paced modern visionary company no longer required. She then coldly dropped her fake smile and announced that my facilities management position was being permanently outsourced to a cheaper, younger, cloud-based startup out of Austin. A tense murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, while Marcus, our weak-willed general counsel, stared intently at his expensive leather shoes to avoid acknowledging this massive age discrimination lawsuit waiting to happen. I simply asked if she wanted me to vacate the premises immediately, refusing to scream, cry, or beg for the loyalty I had shown the firm for nearly 2 decades. Reaching into my oversized tote bag, I pulled out a heavy jangling brass key ring loaded with 15 old-school master keys and placed them gently onto her sleek glass podium with a definitive clink. I softly explained that these master keys controlled the entire campus, the distribution warehouses, and the vital executive suite overrides, which caused Lila to roll her eyes at my outdated antiques. Marcus, however, locked his eyes onto the heavy ring, and the color instantly drained from his face until he looked like he had been chemically bleached by pure terror. He frantically whispered to Lila that these weren't just standard facility keys, but she snapped at him to be quiet and ordered 2 apologetic security guards to escort me out. I told the guards it was fine and walked out the sliding glass doors for the last time, watching Marcus desperately grab the brass ring to read the small red label attached to the largest key. That tiny tag bore an inscription I had written myself 12 years ago: property of Aspen Threshold Partners, owner use only. Lila thought she was throwing out an obsolete piece of trash, completely unaware that she had just demolished the load-bearing wall holding up her entire corporate empire. To understand Marcus's sheer panic, you have to realize that old man Todd Westville was an engineering genius who viewed corporate paperwork and property taxes as a personal insult. 12 years ago, Westville Systems exploded with cash and needed a $50 million Valley expansion. But Todd was personally leveraged to the hilt from a messy divorce and couldn't secure bank financing. During a chaotic meeting where Todd was throwing whiteboard markers in a tantrum, he ordered me to fix the real estate issue through any legal loophole or shell corporation available. I proposed utilizing a strategic holding entity called Aspen Threshold Partners to purchase the land and lease it back to Westfield on a triple net basis, keeping the massive debt off their corporate balance sheet. Todd was so thrilled to bypass the bank paperwork that he signed the authorization form while eating a bagel, completely failing to read page 42 of the dense contract. That hidden page clearly disclosed that Aspen Threshold Partners was an independent limited liability company entirely owned by me, funded by my personal life savings and a substantial family inheritance. The bank eagerly approved the property loan because Westfield signed a strict 20-year master lease agreement that effectively forced the company to pay off my entire commercial mortgage. For over a decade, I played the part of the dutiful invisible facility lady, driving a modest Honda CR-V, while Westfield Systems quietly wired huge monthly rent payments directly into my thriving corporate bank account. By the time Layla arrived to disrupt the legacy, my little shell company legally held the sole titles to the corporate headquarters, the R&D lab, and the primary distribution warehouse. 3 weeks prior to her takeover, I had tracked my emails and discovered that Layla's 24-year-old chief of staff had archived my detailed 40-page transition document into a folder labeled boring stuff. If they had bothered to read page 3, they would have seen that firing me immediately triggered a material lease violation and an automatic aggressive rent renegotiation clause. 2 days after my dramatic termination, I sat in my quiet Marin County garden watching automatic push notifications flood my phone regarding urgent access denials and critical power failures at the headquarters. When Lila canceled my corporate credit card, the automated billing system for the cloud-based building management grid bounced, causing the security vendor to immediately suspend all digital access. The smart building system automatically defaulted to its extreme energy saving mode, which cut the air conditioning, locked the server rooms, and retracted the electronic window blinds to let in full blistering sunlight. I opened my personal laptop to find a desperate email from Marcus stating that the physical overrides were failing, and the bank was raising terrifying questions about a property change of control. Inside the stifling office, Lila was frantically meeting with a JP Morgan banker named Jeffrey, who happens to be my weekly bridge partner, to secure a $20 million loan using the headquarters as collateral. Jeffrey adjusted his glasses and politely informed a sweating Lila that her application was denied because property records proved Westville Systems didn't actually own a single square foot of the building. When Lila demanded answers, a trembling Marcus was forced to admit that they were merely tenants renting from Aspen Threshold Partners, an entity legally managed by Evelyn Monroe. Jeffrey added that because the mandatory management clause was breached, Westville had 30 days to secure a new lease agreement or face an immediate eviction and a tripling of their monthly rent. Down in the windowless basement archives, Marcus and 3 panicked junior associates spent 6 hours using my manual keys to unearth the ironclad board-approved contracts from over a decade ago. They discovered a devastating infrastructure rider stating that all hardwired fiber optic lines, backup generators, and server cooling systems legally became the sole property of the landlord upon installation. Marcus called a pacing Lila to deliver the fatal news that I owned the company's literal nervous system and could legally shut down their entire technological infrastructure if the lease defaults weren't resolved. Lila ordered him to offer me a 6-month severance package to make me go away. But I promptly blocked Marcus's number and forced them to communicate strictly via slow certified mail. By midweek, Lila's new operations manager, a tech bro named Brad, tried to bypass the locked digital chillers, which prompted the certified technician to walk off the job to avoid triggering federal coolant violation alarms. To accelerate their misery, I made a quick anonymous call to city enforcement regarding illegal trendy meditation pods Lila had built directly over the lobby's primary fire exits. Inspector Miller arrived, promptly slapped a bright red unsafe structure citation on the glass doors, and fined the building $5,000 a day for modifying a registered commercial property without the owner's explicit consent. I immediately forwarded the city citation to Lila with a formal notice stating that her gross negligence had incurred an immediate 15% lease penalty, totaling $45,000. On Saturday morning, Chairman Simon Vance bypassed Lila entirely and drove his black luxury sedan directly to my house, admitting complete corporate surrender and inviting me to an emergency board session. On Monday morning, I walked into the grand 50F mahogany boardroom, bypassed the lower seating, and confidently took the head of the table while the 12 wealthiest board members stared at me in absolute silence. I smoothly demanded a permanent seat on the corporate board, 5% equity in Westville Systems, and the immediate termination of the current incompetent CEO in exchange for restoring their utilities and saving them from bankruptcy. The board unanimously voted to accept my terms by late afternoon, and the next day I watched a ruined Lila carry her single cardboard box out into the concrete atrium. Please subscribe and share our channel. We made videos for you.